The James Show Podcast.
Top story of the day is still the Texas flooding. Keeps getting worse. Numbers keep climbing. It's been almost a week now. Tonight will make it a week overnight. And it's still going up. There's still more than 160 missing. And I'm just as guilty as anybody else in the fact that it's hard for me to have something be a top headline for an entire week. But this matches that. I mean, just to let you know how big this story is, name another Texas natural disaster that was this deadly. We need to start going through history books now, don't we? But it's such a big deal because, you know, it's mostly kids, or a big chunk of it, I shouldn't say mostly, a big chunk of it's kids. And a big chunk of it is something that is just totally not preventable. And by not preventable, I mean, what are you going to ask God to do? Get rid of rain? Get rid of valleys? Get rid of the ability to build houses wherever you want? No, you can't build it there. Why? Well, there's a 1 in 500 year chance it might flood. Well, that's not very rational. There's nothing wrong with them building houses down there. But think about the argument over here about the warning system. This is falling just completely flat with me. Because let me ask you this. Have you thought about this? I've really, I must confess, a little naive here. I hadn't thought that much about it this week. I've thought more about this week than I have in my entire life. I'm from East Texas. We barely have hills, much less flooding like that. But imagine you're one of these people that's in the line of a flash flood. What do? It's 2:30 in the morning. You get a beep on your phone. You're half awake. Flash flood warning. What do? Do you get in your car and do you drive? Well, if you live at the base of a hill and you have one straight road going up, I mean, maybe. But that's a big risk. If there's a flash flood around you, you don't want to get in a car. That's a dangerous thing to do. So what do? Do you stay inside? Well, if the flash flooding's coming to hit you, that's a terrible place to be too. Do you run? Do you stay? Do you climb a tree and take some snacks with you? What do you do about a flash flood? There's not a cut and dry. Because look, think about it this way. If there's a fire, you get a fire extinguisher. If you don't have a fire extinguisher, you get a garden hose. If there's a whole department you can call the fire department. Who do you call for a flash flood? If you're on the Titanic or on a cruise ship and it's about to sink, what do? Well, you know what you do. You go put on your life vest and you jump in a lifeboat. What do you do for a flash flood? Yeah, I don't really have an answer to this. I don't know. Because getting in a car and driving up could be the thing that saves your life. Getting in a car and trying to outrun the thing could be the action that kills you. Staying could save your life, or staying could kill you. This is a hell of a natural disaster. And I realize sort of the statute of limitations has expired on let's not bring politics into this. It's all right to talk politics now. It's been a while. It's been a week. Can't be sensitive about that forever. But this whole discussion, well, there's things we should have done, or really? We're just one more government fiat away. We're just one more government program, spending bill, rule, regulation, restriction, sign, siren, alert, couple more jobs for the political activists that vote against you. And let's try and keep all this in a little bit of optimistic context. Natural disaster deaths are a bright spot in modern times. The number of people who died in natural disasters 100 years ago was astronomically higher than it is now. And why is that? A part of it is because we have gotten better at predicting weather and having a forecast and getting a little run and start, knowing when a hurricane's going to come, knowing sometimes when bad weather's going to come. But when you compare it to 100 years ago, when you compare it to 1,000 years ago, unbelievably better. So I'm trying to be positive here. Another thing I find really positive is the rescue stories. And there's the obvious brave stories about some 19-year-old camp counselor who risked everything to make sure the handful of little kiddos that were in her possession made it to safety. There's a lot of those stories. Those are amazing. But look at what's happened now with drones. They're finding people because they send a drone up that has a thermal camera, not just a regular camera where you can look for people, but if they're hidden under some brush, or if they're under, a leafy tree, or they're blocked some way by, a woodshed, they can see the heat imprint of these people and find them better. I've seen now that we have drones big enough that they can actually pick a person up. And so that's not really a new technology. That's just a technology that's been made more accessible. We've been able to do, fast water rescues, but it took what? A helicopter. And now that's a lot of resources. You got to have a helicopter that's not already in use. You got to have a helicopter that's rigged correctly with the guys who know how to use it, who knows how to use the pulley or whatever it's called. You got to have the pilot who's not only trained on that equipment and on that helicopter, but he's got to be ready to go at that moment. But with one of these little life-saving drones that can pick a dude up, and these things are pretty big. It's one of those quadcopter drones. You've made that aerial rescue a lot more accessible for a lot cheaper with fewer people who need less expertise. It's a lot easier to fly one of those than it is to be a helicopter pilot. How nice is it that you don't need a guy in the helicopter and a guy that's running the pulley and maybe a guy that's at the bottom of the pulley getting the person up and hooking them up to the system. There's a dude with the remote control at a distance, just maybe watching it, if not doing it completely remotely. So this is a terrible disaster. I'm trying to be optimistic. How are you remaining optimistic here in all this? You can't help but have it drag you down a little bit. If not, you're a crazy person hearing about all these deaths and the number keeps going up. And every day I come to work, I'm like, please God, don't let the number go up today. We still have over 160 people missing. So this number, God help us all, might double. So I'm just trying to be positive over here. I got to tell you, it's pretty hard. You got flood stories? You have a silver lining? You have anything you can say that can cheer the rest of us up when it comes to the floods? 800-288-9227. This is John in Georgetown. You're on WBAP.
Hello, James. What I've got to say isn't exactly cheerful. It's very simplistic, though. I was in the Boy Scouts 50 years ago, and one of the main things that they told you is do not sleep in a ravine, a low water area, or anything like that, because things like what happened here. I mean, I'm in Georgetown, just across the San Gabriel River. That water fell miles away from Georgetown. Now, some of it did fall here, but when you're holding people responsible, especially with dealing with children, where they don't have any idea what needs to happen, the people that are putting those people at risk need to consider the fact that they're responsible for them. And whether it's a camp or a business or, drivers are responsible for themselves. If they drive over across a low water crossing, that's on them. The turn around, don't drown deal is just about to wear me out. But people do it all the time. Over here at Cow Creek, between Burnett and Austin, they lost a 17-year-old girl because that's what they did. Drove right off into the water. And it's just beyond me that people, this day and age, with all the technology and everything, and I don't care what kind of forecast you have, when you're dealing with water that's 60, 70, 80 miles away coming downstream, nobody knows when it's going to hit, especially in the middle of the night. So you've got to stay out of it.
So what do you do? Just never build anything in the bottom of a ravine because it might flood once every 500 years?
If you look at 29 from Georgetown going east to a little town called Circleville, where all the campers were, that road has flooded at least 5 times in the last 20 years that I know of. Why? It's like New Orleans.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of too. It sounds like, and there's a lot of places that do that. They get hit by hurricanes like every 4 years, like a Lake Charles or a Beaumont, or there's a lot of places that kind of flood infrequently. And how much is too much that we just shouldn't build there ever?
And it's not that I don't have compassion for these people, because unfortunately they made very bad decisions, but they keep going back to the same thing. I mean, how many times does it take before you figure out? This is a great
argument to have, or debate, or just discussion to have from an economic perspective, because that is the job of your insurance company. And your insurance company has actuarial tables. They know how much is too much before it's not a good idea to build here. How often does it flood before you shouldn't build here anymore? Now, we have taken that and we have distorted it with flood insurance protection. The National Flood Insurance Protection Act will cover the cost that's above and beyond what the insurance companies are willing to cover. And this came up in New Orleans because New Orleans got landlocked years ago. And then in the 60s, they did the National Flood Insurance Program so people could build out in the swamps and New Orleans could continue to grow. And this worked for the coastal areas that happened to be with one specific party. And so we've all been subsidizing the flood insurance for these people who have been allowed to build houses where houses shouldn't be built. I mean, they should be allowed to be built there, but the insurance company said, if you build it there, we're not going to insure it because it's a money loser. It's economically not viable. So we stopped listening to the private sector because we thought they were being too tight with their money, and we thought we would just help out the poor among us, the poor people that are trying to, just build a house and recover after their flood, and now they can't get insurance. And so our suicidal empathy has risen up again and probably cost people lives. And I remember this because there was a study that was done. If you took the houses that were outside of the boundaries before the National Flood Insurance Program in Katrina, you would have cut the deaths by 2/3. And so I like having this discussion, John. I don't know if that's where you were going with it, but that's where my brain goes with it.
Well, if an entity like the insurance company is not willing to cover the risk, why would you put your children at that risk? In other words, why?
Because the taxpayers will cover it.
Well, I mean, some things are replaceable. Lives are not.
Right, but the likelihood of you dying in a flood in New Orleans are infinitesimally small. The likelihood of your home being damaged in a flood in New Orleans is about half and half. It's about 50-50.
I don't know. I worked on the Mississippi River just in a shipyard called Belle Chase.
Yep, I know Belle Chase.
Belle Chase.
Plaquemines Parish, I know.
And it was destroyed by a hurricane before I got there, and Katrina happened within 2 years after I left. I mean, and that's in my lifespan.
Yeah, I was there.
So how many people died? And those are storms that can be, you evacuate, you go north into Arkansas or whatever, get away from it.
Mississippi, but yeah, I got you.
You evacuate.
Well, good chat, John. Good chat. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. And top story of the day is still the flooding for our neighbors in the Hill Country. The numbers keep getting worse, and this is not normal. This is whether it's a hurricane, a natural disaster, or a terror attack, like even a 9/11. We weren't finding new people to add to the death toll a week later. It just keeps getting worse. And I thought by now I would come in and one day the number would stop growing. Keeps going up, breaking my heart. So what can we do about it? We whine about it. We've cried about it. We prayed about it. If you want to do something about it, go to WBAP.com. In our little headline rotator, we have a whole page set up for when you're ready to actually do something to help the Kerrville flood victims. And we're not telling you what to do. We're giving you a bunch of options here. A lot of you trust some organizations, but don't trust other organizations. So we're going to throw a bunch at you. You choose however you want to help. You can make a donation to the Kerr County Flood Relief Fund. That's through the county. You can donate to the American Red Cross. They have a disaster relief fund specifically for the Texas flooding. We have a link to that. We also have a link to the GoFundMe verified fundraisers for flood victims on the local level. We have another link if you want to help out this group called Texas Search and Rescue. They're a nonprofit with first responders donating their time, effort, expertise, and you could help them out through a link there. The Salvation Army in Kerr County is taking donations. We have a link to their donation site as well. If you want to help on the pet side, that's fine. We need little puppy dogs and kitty cats need help too. There's a link to the Austin Pets Alive, the Kerrville Pets, and the SPCA of Texas. It's all on the website, WBAP.com. So you don't have to remember anything. You don't have to remember any numbers and write them down. You don't have to remember any websites and write them down. Just remember WBAP. It's in the top headline rotator. And we've got all the great donation resources if you actually want to do something about it. And do something. Donate. See how it feels for you to donate. And don't tell anyone about it. Don't make this some PR thing. Don't try and get moral credit or virtue signal. Just be a decent person. It's good for your soul. Phil Temple, you're on WBAP.
Thanks for having me on, James. I'll be short class. I'm just going to give a couple statistics. Ted, did you just comment on, or stop me if you have any questions? In the last 50 years, the United States has had, this makes the third flood, or flash flood, with 60 or more victims. And I'm with you that I believe this is still an unforeseeable event. I can say that it's an area when rains or severe rains, even if it's a washout, it can be, the chances for flooding is severe because of the geography and the hard rock foundation. I was born and raised in Texas, and I understand that but we take things in a matter of common sense, and I mean what has the largest impact. So compared to number of deaths, and my heart goes out and grieves for the families, and also for. So I don't mean any disrespect at all by making this comparison, but we'll just say 500 plus homicides in Chicago alone annually. That is, we can kind of do something about that, but they're attacking law enforcement. So, police and agencies defunding them. So we still prioritize them, and I don't. One death is one too many, but we should still address them in the sense of priorities and that. And with those statistics, China, they have 15 with ranging from 1,000 deaths to up to 4 million, and they leave leaps and bounds. So in the Western world, we're pretty good compared to others. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And I like taking that angle, too, where you look at how many people are killed by some different phenomenon. And it will blow your mind, the fact that, just go look at the local news. There was someone that got killed yesterday in some, urban shootout. There are people that die in the inner cities of every major American city on a daily basis. Gets very little attention, especially on the national level. No one cares about that crime. But a cop kills an unarmed black man, which happens somewhere between 9 and 19 times a year, and we riot for 6 months, and we commit billions of dollars of property damage. The year that George Floyd died, I believe we went back and retraced the numbers there. There was 19 times that happened. We upended our society for something that happened 19 times. But you don't bat an eye at the other, 10,000 or so murders. It's very interesting context, Phil. Thank you. Let's go to Scott, Fort Worth. You're on WBAP.
Hey, James. I was down there yesterday. So what people don't know, there's two different camps, Camp Mystic. There was a main camp that got all the damage, and there's the Cypress Lake that is right by that, but it's not on the Guadalupe. It didn't get any damage, and that's where my girls were.
Oh, my God. You must have had a heart attack seeing the news.
Oh, my gosh. It was terrible. And we had very little information. We just got a single email saying, basically, if you haven't heard from us, then your child's okay. So it was very, I don't know, it kind of rubbed us the wrong way. But we went down there yesterday to pick up the counselors, my daughter's car, and all their clothing because they got evacuated and had to leave everything. It's a disaster zone, man. It's sad.
Man, the pictures on the news are so heartbreaking because, that's somebody's hometown. That's where somebody grew up, and they've lived there, for the first 45 years of their life, and now they don't got anything anymore. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad your daughters are safe.
All right. Thanks, James.
Thank you, Scott. That's Scott in Fort Worth. Coming back to the show, Joe Pags. Welcome back, sir. You're down in the San Antonio area. I guess y'all are downstream of some of that terrible weather, but were you affected or anyone you work with affected by the floods?
We actually, first of all, thanks for having me back on. First of all, we're about 40 miles north of San Antonio, so we're sort of in between Austin and San Antonio. We're pretty close to the Guadalupe River, but not in the area, as you said, where it was most deadly. The river rose a lot where we live, but again, nobody was in harm's way here. About an hour north of us, maybe 45 minutes north of us, is where Kerrville is and Hunt and all those places that were just ravaged by this. I don't know anybody personally, but I have heard that recovery efforts are happening even as close as where we live because of how ravaging those waters were heading south.
Well, that's even closer than I thought, Joe Pags. Do y'all have an issue with people coming down there to try and help? Or I don't know if they're trying to get selfies for their social media feed or whatever, but you know how they tell you, don't go to the recovery zone. You're just going to be a burden. Is there a lot of burdens down there?
Well, I think that people wanted to show up immediately, and I think it probably was out of goodwill. I don't think that it was the selfie hunters early on. I think after that they started showing up to say that they were here. But we put out the notice. You guys put out the notice. I mean, WBAP is my biggest station in Texas, but we've got 16 across the state. And we tell people, don't come here. Literally, the emergency services people from the federal right down to the city level in Kerrville, we're saying, don't come here because we can't protect you. We don't want more people to be in harm's way. Now people are here for the recovery effort, and of course the waters have the river, the banks are back to almost where they were beforehand, and people are coming in, but really professionals that know what they're doing. People want to give. James, they want to help somehow. They want to feel like they got in there and saved lives and did what they could for the community. And that's all great, but it's better to do it through donations and maybe food and stuff like that. But we've had some of those people, but thankfully not as bad as it could have been with these selfie hunters.
Yeah, you know what? I think people are starting to self-censor and mature a little bit now that this technology is more seasoned in our culture. So let's talk about some of the reaction to the flooding. There seems to be a desperate attempt to try and pin this on cuts to the National Weather Service or NOAA or just some desperate attempt to blame a human being. And from my point of view, there's no human at fault here.
Right. Well, that's true because it was a perfect storm that was unpredictable. You don't expect to have 100 billion plus gallons of water dumped in one place in 45 minutes. You don't expect that. It's just not something that you can predict. As good as weather forecasters are, as good as meteorologists are, they're not that good. And I was at the gym today. I don't know if you saw this. I posted it on Instagram, on TikTok, and over on YouTube. But I was at the gym today looking at MSNBC. I don't watch MSNBC, but I had to. This was on in front of my face. And the host is reading some opinion piece from the New York Times that said some person retired at NOAA because of DOGE cuts, and that person would have been responsible for predicting something like this and warning people. Now, you have to understand how stupid that is. You've got somebody who gave an opinion in a rag of a newspaper, and then a horrible network picks it up as if it's news, and then they talk for about 15 minutes about how this one person somehow, James, could have saved everybody in Texas, which is absolute BS. It just isn't true. But you're right. They're trying to make the narrative that Trump is bad, NOAA is bad, FEMA is bad, the DHS is bad. And all of that is just not true. I've had actual meteorologists on. I've had people who have lived in the hill country of Texas for 50 years who said this was not predictable. Now, should we have a better warning system? I had Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick on, and the people here at WBAP heard it the other night. And he said, we've got to put sirens in. We've got to do something mechanical. We've got to do something away from technology. Because when you're camping and you're a 7-year-old kid, you're probably not looking at your cell phone at 1 o'clock in the morning.
For once in your life, right?
Right.
We're talking with Joe Pags. He's your weeknight host here on WBAP, but he's also heard on a couple dozen stations out there syndicated. Now, Joe Pags, the other big story in Texas that really should be getting a lot more attention than it is we had attacks on 2 ICE facilities in the last week.
We did. McAllen, and I don't know if it's Alvarado or Alvarado.
Alvarado.
Is it Alvarado? I figured because it's El Dorado, I think is what we say. Here in San Antonio, instead of Blanco, we say Blanco. So I should have known that. So you had one where firecrackers are set off to get the officers to come out and then try to ambush them. The other one, you got somebody shot in the neck. You got the guy who did it is dead. This isn't going to slow down. You know why? Because Hakeem Jeffries, who, but for a few votes, would be the Speaker of the House, is on MSNBC and CNN inciting this violence. They're trying to pass a bill in the Senate right now between Padilla and I forget who the other guy is, who are trying to insist that ICE agents can't cover their faces. You know, these guys and gals are being doxxed. And you know what? It's the job. If you want to do the job, maybe somebody's going to find out who you are. But now they're doxing their wives, their families, their kids, their aunts and uncles, their parents, and they're bringing harm because there are nut jobs out there, as you know, as we're reporting on right now, who will now take up arms and make a plan to go kill somebody because they're enforcing the law. It's disgusting. And you know, the Texas flooding is the biggest story, James, without a doubt. It's the biggest story. But we can't forget those other 2 stories that you bring up very wisely, because we can't turn a blind eye to the fact that not only is the violence happening, it's ramping up in a big way.
Yeah, well, I have a counter solution to that. If you don't want ICE agents to be wearing masks, here's an idea. Stop shooting at them.
Yeah. No, exactly right. Stop doxing them. Stop threatening them. By the way, all these ICE raids, I should say, all the ICE raids are happening in sanctuary cities. Keep this in mind, and I had Tom Holman on the other night, as the people here heard on WBAP. The ICE raids are only happening in places like Boston, Chicago, L.A. They're happening in places that are called Denver, that are called sanctuary cities. The authorities there are literally telling police, you may not cooperate with ICE. So ICE has a warrant out for me, Joe Pags, and I'm in Chicago. ICE tells Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, we want Joe Pags. And Johnson says, we are not cooperating. We're not helping you find this guy. So ICE has the right now, federally, because it's their official purview to take care of naturalization and immigration. They go now and find me. And in that same place where I'm hiding, there are 15 illegal aliens. Well, all those people are going to go now as collateral. That's going to happen. Now, ICE wasn't looking for the other 15, but they have every right to check your status. And if you're not here legally, you're going to go too. All they have to do is cooperate with ICE, and this will be minimized, and only the worst of the worst will be picked up. That's how stupid it is and how backward it is.
Well, I look forward to your show tonight. This is Joe Pags. You can hear him on WBAP weeknights, 8 p.m. to midnight. Thank you very much, sir.
Keep up the great work, James.
All right, good stuff. Man, this stuff really does. It's really a drag. Coming up next, We're going to talk about the media response. And it's not just the media. There's a couple other like politicians and their guests that are thrown in there. But their response to this kind of spells out, you can almost make a direct connection to why are people so callous about the victims of the flood? Why are people so upset about ICE? They're shooting at them. Well, I'll give you the people that are inciting them coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.